Beautiful stories. Have you ever wondered if God is speaking but you're just not listening? Sometimes God's voice isn't always loud. Sometimes it is hidden in the ordinary. Let's reflect on how we can hear God, even in the ordinary. Sometimes when life feels quiet, it doesn't mean God is absent. He might just be inviting you to listen to Him differently. Sometimes God chooses to speak to us through strangers. Sometimes He chooses to speak to us through a book we read and it just touches our heart differently. Sometimes He chooses to speak through us through a memory that just comes back with a different meaning entirely. Sometimes He speaks to us through peace. We just feel this peace in our hearts that cannot be explained, peace that can only be divine. But oftentimes we expect God to speak to us in big moments. We expect Him to speak to us through fireworks, through miracles, through a prayer house or a prayer platform, through prophets, through Gio. We expect Him to speak to us in the church. But most of the time He choose not to speak to us through the way we're expecting Him to speak to us. Sometimes He sends our answers not in the way that we expect the answers to come. It's not like God isn't speaking. It's not like He has not released the answer, but you're not paying attention to it. You're expecting it to come from a particular direction, and God is sending it through a different direction. Most of the time, He can even decide to speak to you through a random video that just pops out on your FYP. But you are not paying attention, so you cannot understand the video because that's not where you're expecting your answers to come from. That's not where you're expecting to hear from God. You're expecting to hear from Him in the church. You're expecting that prophet to give you a prophecy. Meanwhile, God is saying, no, I'm not sending it through that way. I'm sending it through the quiet moments this time. So I'm urging you to pay attention to the quiet moments, those times where you do your everyday chores, those times where you wash the dishes, those times where you decide to take a walk. Just pay attention. He does not always speak to us through the big moments. Sometimes He chooses to speak to us through the quiet moments. If you've been waiting to hear from God, do not be discouraged. Maybe He's speaking already, but not in the way you're expecting Him to speak. If the space speaks to your heart, please feel free to subscribe to Internal Insights and join the journey with us. May God's light shine on you always. Stay blessed.